Hey everyone, how's it going? So today I want to talk about a topic that comes up quite a lot, and that's failing the NBCOT. I feel like this is, it doesn't happen to everyone, but does happen to some, right? And it sucks if this is you. And the reason for bringing this up because I don't feel like this isn't talked about like enough. And besides like the content you see on like forums or even like on Reddit, maybe on social media. I don't really personally feel like I've seen much of that lately, but it's people who typically like post on, maybe the AOTA Facebook group. So that comes up a lot in that group. That is a very common theme on that group, right? And if this happens to you, like I totally empathize with you. Like that really sucks, right? Whether you fail by 1 point or more, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You just didn't pass, right? The goal is to pass the NBCOT board exam. And one of my reasons for making this video today is because of the post I saw on Reddit. Unfortunately, the original comment was deleted. So I totally respect that by the OP original poster. But it's something along the lines of they failed the exam and they failed it by 1 point. And they're wondering if they can appeal the NBCOT exam. So a lot of helpful comments by replies by other users. Let's actually show the screen here. All right, so the original post was deleted, but you know the story, and let's see what people had to say. You might be able to argue against a particular question if you feel it was wrong or worded wrong, but the fact that you ran out of time is quite common. 1 point or 50 points doesn't matter, kind of like what I just said. You didn't pass. And I think the one comment that wasn't deleted by them was down here. People were like wondering, well, why do you want to appeal it in the first place? And the original poster said, it was because a question that I was going to change but ran out of time. That would put me at the passing score of 450. Not sure if this is possible though. So this got extremely downvoted, probably for a good reason in that I feel like this person is kind of like bargaining to pass the exam. So I'm not saying I'm not minimizing these feelings, right? So if you're one of these people who failed, if you're this original poster, like this totally sucks. The mod of this subreddit said it nicely. It says, unfortunately, this is not something that's appealable. If there was something actually wrong with test administration, where some event happened that made it not possible for you to have your full test time, like the building caught on fire. Right? That was a common thing that people say. Like, unless the building caught on fire or like you had a medical emergency or you had like major computer glitches, it's likely not going to be the case that they will approve your appeal, right? And actually some other people said they have actually tried that and they were in the exact same situation and they were denied like 2 times. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, rather than putting all your energy into like trying to make it so that you pass just because it's come on, like 1 point, can you please? That's bargaining, right? Put your energy into passing and focusing on that, right? Continuing with this comment, but sadly you weren't able to answer enough questions in time allotted, right? This may have been the case, but how would the NBCOT know, right? Like to them, it's just like you just answered it wrong. Like maybe you were going to choose that answer. How would I know that you were going to choose a third answer? Sounds like you're feeling the urge to bargain as a way of processing these difficult feelings. I encourage you to sit with and experience your grief and disappointment for now, then return to a study schedule when you're ready. This is unfortunately a very, very common situation, right? So much so, oh look, another post. This one was 11 months ago, but has anyone ever appealed the NBCOT score? Obviously, failing the exam alone is not a reason to appeal. There you go. But I was just looking for some insight on it. I received a failing score this morning at 448. Very common, right? On my 3rd attempt. That really sucks. This sucks so bad. I am fully aware that this is very likely just my own fault, but was just looking for some insight and if anybody has gone through this process. So actually, I'm curious. What do people say? I was curious. I was wondering the same thing. Saw your post here. I missed my exam by 1 point. See? It's my second time, more or less just feeling lost. I feel like all I've done is studied. I know I can't just appeal for a quote regrade, but I didn't know other reasonings to appeal. So, there might be other reasons. You never know, but it has to be like something really extreme. And you can get many, many attempts to retest, right? Like after failing a 3rd time, you have to wait 60 days to retest instead of 30. After the 6th attempt, you can only take it every 6 months, but you can still retake it. So unlike other board exams, I'm not really familiar, but I think there are other limits. Oh, I believe in Canada. Someone who is from Canada reached out to me. One of my friends, OT friends, they said that you can only get a certain amount of attempts. I think like 3 or something. So in America, I feel like, it's much more lenient. You get much more opportunities. So kind of going back to that comment by the mod, and I don't know if this was their intention, but to sit with their grief, and it kind of sounds to me like acceptance and commitment therapy. So use one of your mental health strategies that you learn in OT school on yourself. So with that said, I want to kind of support you all out there and encourage, give you motivation out there. I'm not really going to talk too much about like, well, what can you do in terms of like the studying and the resources part, because I think that's been said many, many times. Maybe I'll make a separate video for that. But I want to just talk more about the mental health part and just what it's like to go through it. Right? Like I personally haven't experienced this, but it's not like I haven't experienced failure, right? I almost failed my EMT exam to be an EMT during my like practical skills. Like I had to retake one part and I was like, how is this like happening? Like, oh my gosh, like other people who are like, even not doing so well, like in the past, were like passing this practical exam. It was like, I could have in that very moment when I received that news, like really focused on the negative and all that. But I really just focused on what I knew, being confident and just taking that input, because I got really good input, and then just using that as my strength to put one foot forward and pass. And the same applies to one of my practical exams in OT school, where I did a transfer. Like I think most of you were required to do this, like demonstrate transfers. And I failed that too. And I was like, going back to like, oh my gosh, how is this possible? I was an EMT. I transfer people like left and right, So same thing. I took the advice and like the input of why I failed. You get that input as well for when you fail the NBCOTs. And this doesn't really just apply to NBCOT. It can apply to like a school exam, anything, right, in life. But more specifically, the NBCOT, it's a hard exam. So with that said, what can you do? So I'm a pretty big proponent of using the strategies that you learn in OT school on yourself. So I learned a lot about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and most of you probably will have learned that. One thing that I really, really like and really use personally these days is ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And what the moderator kind of said is kind of in the spirit of that, and like accepting and sitting with it. So just a really quick like analogy or like way to apply ACT in the situation is, those of you who don't know, I'll kind of like give a really broad overview. Is like, it's in the name, right? Acceptance and commitment therapy. So accepting that you failed, and some people fail, some people don't, right? And it's not to accept failure per se, but the commitment part of acceptance and commitment therapy ACT is, what are you committed to? And this is why I am really, really a big fan of ACT these days, is because it aligns really, really well, like so well with our spirit and our philosophy of occupational therapy, because it's based in the values. So values, it's really similar to goals. Like goals, you all know in occupational therapy is like, oh, what is your goal? To pass the NBCOT, to get licensed to be an occupational therapist, right? Thing about values in ACT is values are kind of like, what do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What do you want to be known as? If someone were to describe you like a friend, like what kind of person are you? Are you someone who is really nice? They're committed to helping people. They are very like caring. They value, it can be anything, right? And everybody's different. That's the cool thing about humans. Everybody's different and everybody's unique. You may value making a lot of money. That can even be a value. You may value family. You may value providing for your family. You may value justice. You may value, more rights for if you're a minority, for your community. You can value just anything. And that's really cool because values are really, really strong. Not only that, it defines kind of who you are, but they're also something that like don't change. They may change a little bit, but they kind of persist over time compared to goals. So applying this back to the NBCOT, I want to be someone who is just like really competent in their field and can really help people and do this as a profession. That may be one of your values. So that can be something that can help you to drive you to reach your goal of passing NBCOT as a secondary thing. So if that makes really any sense, but really it's It can be a goal too, if that's really what you want to focus on and that's your goal. That's why I think ACT can be really helpful, because one way to look at it is that CBT compared to ACT, CBT is really focused on symptom reduction, like reducing feeling bad, reducing your negative feelings, reducing feeling like a failure. So if that's what you really want to kind of like address, then CBT may be really helpful. But to me, it's like takes a lot of energy to just challenge your negative thoughts and to flip it around. And I feel like thoughts come and go. Like to me, I have like millions of random thoughts all the time, and I don't necessarily like want to have the energy to even address it. Right? If you have anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever, a medical condition, it's like it takes a lot of energy to like keep track of your thoughts and then counter them, and then you're kind of like having this back and forth inside your head. Whereas at the end of the day, you're gonna want to pass the NBCOT. You're gonna want to be the person that you want to be, and that's where ACT comes in. You accept your situation, and then you think about what you can do at the end of the day and focusing on those values. And then what's really cool is ACT also combines things of like sprinkling in like mindfulness in there and diffusing from things like some of your thoughts. You want to pass the NBCOT, or you want to be a certain type of person, ACT can take you there. So as a therapist, not only for yourself too as a practitioner, but also to help your clients, I highly encourage you to check out ACT. Some of the books by Russ Harris are really good. They're really easy to read. They're like geared towards just like general population. One of the popular books is The Happiness Trap. Check it out, and good luck. I know you've been studying. I know you worked really, really hard. Sometimes it could just be down to like dumb luck, like sometimes if you're like guessing between an answer, just clicking the right one. And those of you who failed by 1 point, that's literally like 1 point. Like you're like so close. Take the time to address your mental health, your stress, your anxiety, hang out with family once in a while. Like don't focus 1000% into it as well, right? As with anything in life, occupations, we need balance. And then just take the exam and just see what happens. If you fail this second time, take it a third time. And for those of you who failed by many, many points, right? Well, what can you do? It still applies to you. Apply ACT. What are the things that you really value and the person you want to be, and how can you get there? And it's not like we can get rid of some emotions, right? It's part of life. Sadness, disappointment, feeling like a failure. It's all part of life. And if we don't feel like that, I can see that as actually a good thing, because it helps to protect you. It helps you to look out for yourself. So rather than seeing it as a negative thing, feeling bad, feeling like a failure and stuff, your mind is kind of telling you this to kind of protect you, to help you find ways to pass. The trap is when you kind of feed into your thoughts of like you really are a failure, so you don't study, you don't retake the exam, or you give up, when you may even consider want to talk to somebody about it, like social supports, the psychosocial, right? Why not even talk to a therapist about it, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? As even like psychotherapists, mental health practitioners themselves, psychiatrists, see a psychiatrist or see another mental health provider. So as an occupational therapist, there's like no shame in going and seeing a provider, especially if you're in school. Oh my gosh, I wish I had this resource back in the day. It's like typically free. Like you have counseling for free, like unlimited. Like, oh my gosh, like if you don't have to pay for it, please go and check it out and just talk it out. You can feel a lot better. So good luck studying, good luck passing, and I'll see you all out in the comments, in the field, and so on, so on. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this enough. There is a chat room, so a lot of great students, like practitioners, are on there and just chopping it up, giving each other support in the community. So check that out in the link in the description if you don't know about this resource already.